First Contact Protocol. The Sentinel defense station hung in the void like a crystalline snowflake, its delicate spires belying the powerful sensors that monitored this sector of Concordat space. Senior Monitor Vea adjusted her sensory filaments, a gesture her species made when deep in thought. Something wasn't right about the energy readings from Sector 7. Administrator, we have an anomaly, she reported, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with concern. The gravitic sensors are detecting a mass shadow far larger than any registered merchant vessel. Administrator Kelvin floated over, his translucent body refracting the soft blue light of the command center. The Hadrian administrator had overseen this sector for 3 decades without incident. That perfect record was about to change. Classification, he asked, his own biolights shifting to warning amber. Unknown, but Vea's voice trailed off as the readings crystallized into a clear signature. By the first stars, it's human. The word sent a ripple of agitation through the command center. Humans were a relatively new species to join the galactic community, but their reputation preceded them. Their ships were notorious for being overbuilt, overarmed, and completely unpredictable. Initiate first contact protocols, Kelvin ordered, his voice steady despite his rapidly shifting colors. And notify Central Command immediately. The massive vessel emerged from hyperspace like a predator sliding out of deep water. Its hull was a dark carbon composite, absorbing rather than reflecting light. Weapon ports lined its flanks, currently closed but their presence unmistakable. It was easily 3 times the size of the largest Concordat patrol ship. They're broadcasting, Vea reported, surprise evident in her voice. Standard Concordat frequencies, diplomatic protocols. The message that came through was crisp and professional. Sentinel Station, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth ship Hyperion. We apologize for the unannounced arrival, but we're tracking a stolen research vessel that entered your space approximately 6 hours ago. Requesting permission to coordinate with your patrol forces. Kelvin's biolights flickered rapidly as he processed this unexpected development. Humans asking permission. That didn't match any of the stories he'd heard. Captain Chen, he responded carefully, your presence here violates 3 separate provisions of the Concordat Space Treaty. We have no record of any stolen vessel. Transmitting data package now, Chen replied without missing a beat. The vessel is using advanced stealth technology, also stolen. It's carrying experimental terraforming bacteria. If released improperly, it could devastate entire ecosystems. Data streamed across the Sentinel screens, ship specifications, security footage, chemical analyses, everything meticulously documented and organized. Vea's tentacles writhed as she processed the information. Administrator, she said quietly, these readings match an anomaly we detected in the Kraken Nebula. We dismissed it as sensor ghost, but Kelvin's colors shifted to deep purple, their equivalent of a frown. Captain Chen, even if your data is accurate, we cannot allow a human warship tow. Administrator, Chen interrupted, her voice taking on an edge of urgency. I understand your position, but that ship is carrying enough bacterial payload to render a dozen worlds uninhabitable. We're not asking to conduct military operations in your space. We're asking to work together to prevent an ecological catastrophe. Something in her tone made Kelvin pause. He'd studied human vocal patterns as part of his diplomatic training. There was genuine concern there, not the artificial politeness of someone trying to manipulate. Vea, analyze their weapons status, he ordered. All systems powered down except for shields and basic life support, she reported, surprise evident. They're making themselves vulnerable. Kelvin made a decision. Captain Chen, I'm transmitting coordinates for a rendezvous with our patrol fleet. You will remain in formation with our ships. Any unauthorized movement will be considered hostile action. Understood completely, Administrator, Chen replied. We'll match course and speed with your patrol vessels. Thank you for your cooperation. As the massive human ship gracefully maneuvered into position alongside the much smaller Concordat vessels, Kelvin watched with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. Everything he'd heard about humans painted them as aggressive, impatient, and prone to solving problems with overwhelming firepower. Yet here they were, following proper protocols, providing documentation, and willingly placing themselves under the command of a foreign power. Either everything he'd been told was wrong, or his biolights flashed with sudden realization, or the threat they were chasing was so severe that even humans knew they couldn't handle it alone. "Vaya," he said quietly, "contact Central Command. Tell them we need every available science vessel redirected to the Kraken Nebula." And he paused, his colors shifting to deep indigo. "Tell them to bring their containment protocols. All of them." The hunt was about to begin, and Kelvin had a feeling they were all about to learn some very interesting lessons about their human allies. The chase begins. The command center aboard the Earth ship Hyperion hummed with activity as Captain Sarah Chen studied the holographic display of the Kraken Nebula. The stolen research vessel's trail led straight into that cosmic maze of ionized gases and gravitational anomalies. Behind her, a delegation from the Sentinel Station was getting their first look at a human warship's bridge. Administrator Kelvin's biolights flickered rapidly as he absorbed the unfamiliar environment. The bridge was surprisingly spacious, with workstations arranged in concentric circles around the central command chair. But what caught his attention were the crew members themselves. Each station was staffed by both a human and an AI interface, working in seamless coordination. "Your artificial intelligence systems," he observed, his translucent form rippling with curiosity. "They're far more advanced than anything in our databases." "Quantum neural networks," Chen explained, not taking her eyes off the display. "They don't think like we do, but they think. And more importantly, they remember. Every nebula crossing, every gravitational eddy, every radiation surge. They learn from it all." Vaya, who had insisted on joining the human ship as a science liaison, extended her sensory filaments toward one of the AI interfaces. "Fascinating. They're not just processing data. They're alive," Chen finished, "in their own way. And right now, they're telling me something very interesting about our quarry's trail." She gestured at the nebula display. "Notice anything unusual about their course?" Kelvin studied the projected flight path. "They're taking the most dangerous route possible, through radiation storms, past gravitational shears." "Exactly." Chen's expression hardened. "They're not running scared. They're testing us. Every obstacle is carefully chosen to either slow us down or force us to reveal our capabilities." The revelation sent a wave of color changes through both alien observers. "You think they wanted to be chased?" Vaya asked, her bioluminescence pulsing with alarm. "By us specifically," Chen confirmed. "Think about it. They stole not just any research project, but one guaranteed to get Earth's attention. Then they fled through Concordat space, knowing we'd have to either violate treaties by pursuing or let them escape with devastating weapons. A trap," Kelvin concluded, his colors shifting to warning red. "But for whom? Your ship. Our patrol fleet. That's what we need to find out." Chen turned to face them fully for the first time. "Administrator, I need to be completely honest with you. The Hyperion isn't just a warship. We're part of Earth's Diplomatic Intelligence Division. When we received the theft report, certain patterns emerged that suggested larger involvement." Kelvin's form became almost completely transparent, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. "You're saying this could be more than simple theft. We think someone is trying to engineer a diplomatic incident between Earth and the Concordat. The theft, the chase, the nebula. It's all too perfectly arranged, like a stage being set." Before either alien could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. "Contact," the sensor officer shouted. Multiple vessels emerging from the nebula's outer arm. The holographic display shifted, showing a dozen ships of various designs emerging from the gas clouds. Their configuration was unlike anything in either Earth or Concordat databases. Energy signatures are masked, the tactical officer reported. But mass readings suggest heavy weapons. They're forming a blockade pattern across our projected course. Chen's expression remained calm, but her eyes narrowed slightly. And there's our audience. Administrator, I know this is technically your jurisdiction, but given the circumstances, Kelvin's biolights stabilized into a pattern of deep blue decision made. Captain Chen, I temporarily grant the Hyperion full operational authority under Concordat Emergency Protocol 7. Do what needs to be done. A small smile touched Chen's lips. Thank you, Administrator. Now let me show you why Earth ships have the reputation they do. She turned to her crew. Battle stations, but let's be subtle about it. Maintain current speed and heading. Lieutenant Park, begin active sensor sweeps but keep power levels minimal. Make it look like we're trying to hide it. What are you doing? Vea asked, her sensory filaments quivering with tension. Giving them exactly what they expect. Chen explained. They think they know how a human warship will react, charging in with guns blazing. So we'll play to that stereotype. Make them think they've successfully provoked us into revealing our true aggressive nature. But that's not your real plan, Kelvin observed, noting how the crew was quietly making preparations that had nothing to do with direct combat. Administrator, I think it's time you learned why Earth's Diplomatic Intelligence Division has such a high success rate. Chen's smile widened slightly. Sometimes the best way to spring a trap is to step into it deliberately, while setting a dozen of your own. The Hyperion moved forward, its massive form cutting through the nebula's outer gases like a predator entering its hunting grounds. But beneath its seemingly straightforward advance, complex plans were being set in motion. As Kelvin watched the human crew work, he realized that perhaps the most dangerous thing about humans wasn't their technology or their strength. It was their ability to turn their enemies' expectations against them. Nebula's shadow. The Kraken Nebula lived up to its name, its swirling tendrils of ionized gas reaching out like the arms of a cosmic monster. The Hyperion's bridge was bathed in the eerie purple glow filtering through the viewports as they approached the blockade of mystery ships. Analysis complete, Lieutenant Park announced, her fingers dancing across her holographic interface. 12 vessels, mixed configurations. Energy signatures suggest Concordat weapon systems, but the hull designs. She frowned. They're wrong. Like someone tried to replicate Concordat ships from incomplete data. Administrator Kelvin drifted closer to her station, his biolights pulsing with concern. Counterfeit vessels, but the resources required to build even one would be enormous, Chen finished. Which tells us our opponents are very well funded. Vea, what are your readings on the nebula itself? The alien scientist extended her sensory filaments toward her temporary workstation. The ionization patterns are unusual. They're using something to excite the gas molecules, creating artificial turbulence. Standard sensors would be nearly useless in there. But you're not using standard sensors, are you? Chen asked with a knowing look. Vea's bioluminescence flickered with surprise. How did you? Because you haven't stopped monitoring since you came aboard. Your species' natural ability to detect electromagnetic fields. It's not blocked by the nebula's interference, is it? A ripple of appreciation moved through Vea's filaments. No. We evolved to navigate through similar phenomena on our homeworld. I can taste the energy patterns. They're trying to hide something behind that wall of turbulence. Something big. A base, Kelvin suggested. Or a fleet. Let's find out. Chen turned to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Rivera, prepare a full spread of probe drones. Standard attack pattern. The blockade ships began moving as soon as the drones launched, spreading out to intercept. Their reaction was smooth, professional, and telling. Those aren't automated defenses, Rivera observed. Those are veteran crews. They know what they're doing. But they don't know what we're doing, Chen replied with a slight smile. Initiate Protocol Medusa. The drones suddenly split apart, each component separating into dozens of smaller units. What had appeared to be a standard probe attack transformed into a swarm of tiny sensors, scattering in all directions. "Remarkable," Kelvin commented, his colors shifting to patterns of admiration. "You sacrificed range and power for numbers." "Quantity has a quality all its own," Chen quoted, "especially when your opponent has to deal with thousands of potential threats instead of dozens. Each micro-drone only needs to gather data for a few seconds before it's destroyed." The blockade ships reacted predictably, their point defense systems engaging the swarm. Energy beams and projectiles filled space, creating a spectacular light show against the nebula's backdrop. But for every drone they destroyed, 3 more slipped through their coverage. "Data coming in," Park reported excitedly. "The turbulence is hiding. Sir, you need to see this." The main holographic display updated, showing a massive structure deep within the nebula. It appeared to be a collection of habitat rings surrounding a central sphere, with numerous ships docked around its perimeter. "That's a Concordat research station," Kelvin said, his form becoming almost completely transparent with shock. "Section 31. But it was decommissioned decades ago, due to containment failures." "Containment of what?" Chen asked sharply. Vea's filaments twisted in agitation. It was a biological research facility. They were studying extremophile organisms found in nebula environments, trying to understand how life could evolve in such hostile conditions. "And now someone's using it as a base," Rivera concluded. "Perfect place to work with stolen bioweapons." Before anyone could respond, the tactical display lit up with new warnings. The blockade ships were moving, but not to attack. They were retreating, falling back toward the station in perfect formation. "They're not running," Chen observed. "They're drawing us in. Everything about this has been choreographed, trying to manipulate us into specific reactions." She turned to Kelvin. "Administrator, I need to know everything about that station. Not the official records, what really happened there." Kelvin's biolights pulsed in patterns of deep conflict. "That information is restricted to the highest levels of Concordat security. And if we go in there blind, we could end up releasing something far worse than the stolen bacteria." Chen's voice was firm but understanding. "I know I'm asking you to violate protocols, but lives are at stake. Not just human lives, but potentially entire worlds." The alien administrator was silent for a long moment, his colors shifting through complex patterns. Finally, they settled into a deep, resolute blue. "Section 31 wasn't just studying extremophile organisms," he began. "They were trying to weaponize them, create biological agents that could survive in any environment, adapt to any defense. The project was shut down when they lost control of their test subjects. The official story was that everything was sterilized, but some samples survived," Chen finished. "And now someone has both those samples and our stolen bacteria. They're not planning to ransom the bioweapons. They're going to combine them." Vea realized, her filaments writhing in horror. "Create something that could survive anywhere, adapt to anything, and terraform entire worlds into death zones." Chen's expression hardened as she studied the station's image. "Not if we stop them first. Administrator, I know this goes against every protocol, but I need your people's knowledge of that station combined with our capabilities. Will you help us?" Kelvin's form solidified, his biolights burning with determination. "Captain, I begin to understand why humans have the reputation they do. You see a situation where most would retreat and instead start planning how to overcome it." "That's not an answer, Administrator." "No," he agreed, his colors shifting to match the command lighting of the Hyperion's bridge. "This is, what do you need us to do?" The hidden station. Section 31 loomed before them, its massive form barely visible through the nebula's shifting gases. What had once been a pristine research facility now resembled a derelict coast ship, its outer rings scarred by decades of exposure to the nebula's corrosive environment. The Hyperion held position just outside the station's sensor range, running silent. "The station's defense grid is still active," Lieutenant Park reported from her sensor station. "But the patterns are Strange. Like it's being operated by multiple competing systems. Makes sense, Chen mused, studying the tactical display. Our thieves probably brought their own security systems, trying to overlay them on the original Concordat tech. That could work to our advantage. Kelvin's biolights pulsed with concern as he examined the station schematic. The primary labs were in the central sphere, surrounded by 3 containment rings. Each ring was designed to be sealed and sterilized independently in case of contamination. Perfect for defending against boarders too, Rivera noted. They could trap us between rings, vent atmosphere, hit us with decontamination protocols. Unless we don't go in through the rings. Chen turned to Vea. Those readings you've been getting, you said you can taste the energy patterns. Could you detect gaps in their security coverage? The alien scientist's filaments writhed thoughtfully. Yes, but you're not suggesting. A direct approach would be suicide, Chen confirmed. But this station was built to study nebula organisms. There must be external collection ports, ways to bring samples inside. The specimen intakes, Kelvin realized, his colors shifting with sudden understanding. They're too small for conventional boarding parties, but perfect for environmental suits and minimal equipment. Chen's smile held a predatory edge, especially if we have someone who can sense which ports are still active. Vea's bioluminescence flickered rapidly. I could guide a team through the nebula, help them avoid the worst of the radiation storms. But the specimen intakes are scattered across the station's surface. We'd need multiple insertion points, perfect timing, and a very big distraction. Chen finished. She turned to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Rivera, remember that drill we ran in the Horsehead Nebula? The one that almost got us court-martialed? Rivera's eyes widened. The Ghost Fleet maneuver. But we'd need at least a dozen ships to generate that kind of sensor profile. We have something better. Chen gestured to the nebula surrounding them. We have a cosmic storm cloud just waiting to be shaped. Vea, could your sensory abilities help us predict and manipulate the nebula's energy patterns? You want to turn the entire nebula into a phantom fleet, Kelvin observed, his form rippling with amazement. Use its natural phenomena to generate false sensor readings, while a small team slips in through the specimen intakes, Chen confirmed. Administrator, I know I'm asking a lot, but we need your people's knowledge of this station combined with Vea's abilities. The alien administrator was quiet for a moment, his colors shifting through complex patterns of thought. Captain, what you're proposing. It's either brilliant or insane, possibly both. That's humanity's specialty, Chen replied with a grim smile. Lieutenant Park, begin plotting nebula discharge patterns. Rivera, I want our drone swarms reprogrammed for electromagnetic pulse generation. We're going to turn this entire sector into one massive sensor ghost. The next hour was a blur of preparation. Combat teams donned specially modified environmental suits, while Vea worked with the science department to map safe passages through the nebula's chaos. Kelvin provided detailed schematics of the station's internal layout, marking potential hazards and containment protocols. Just before the operation began, Chen gathered the joint human-alien strike team in the Hyperion's launch bay. The sight was remarkable. Human soldiers in sleek combat suits standing alongside Concordat security officers in their environmental bubbles. Once we're inside, we'll have limited communication through all this interference, Chen briefed them. Stick to your assigned partners. Human strength and endurance combined with Concordat environmental awareness. Trust each other's capabilities. What if we encounter the station's original specimens? One of the Concordat officers asked, their biolights pulsing with concern. Then we'll deal with that too, Chen answered firmly. Remember, whatever they're creating in there is designed to destroy entire worlds. We're not just fighting for Earth or the Concordat. We're fighting for every living thing that calls a planet home. The launch bay doors opened, revealing the nebula's swirling purple-green expanse. In the distance, Section 31 waited like a massive spider in its web. As the strike teams moved into position, Chen activated her suit's comm system one last time. Administrator, are your people ready to begin the Ghost Fleet Protocol? Ready, Captain. Kelvin replied, his voice steady despite the risk they were taking. Though I must admit, I never expected to be using a Class 7 nebula phenomenon as a tactical device. First time for everything, Chen said with a slight smile. Especially when humans are involved. All teams, execute on my mark. Let's show them why you should never underestimate humanity's talent for creative problem-solving. The nebula erupted with carefully orchestrated chaos, and the final phase of their mission began. Trust earned. The nebula blazed with false sensor signatures as the Hyperion's drone swarms excited the ionized gases, creating the illusion of an entire battle fleet emerging from the cosmic storm. Section 31's defense grid responded exactly as planned, focusing its attention on the Phantom Armada, while small teams of environmental suits slipped through the specimen intake ports. Inside her modified suit, Captain Chen followed Veya's guidance through the treacherous approach. The alley primary intake port ahead, Veya reported, her bioluminescence visible even through her environmental bubble. Energy readings suggest minimal security scanning. Because they never expected anyone to be crazy enough to try this, Rivera commented through the comm. His team was approaching from the opposite side of the station, using similar intake ports. The specimen port's airlock was barely large enough for their suits. As they cycled through one by one, Chen's tactical display updated with status reports from the other teams. All were proceeding according to plan, penetrating the station's outer shell through various maintenance and research access points. And scientists' ability to sense electromagnetic fields proved invaluable as they navigated between patches of lethal radiation and gravitational shears. Inside, the station's corridors were a maze of twisted metal and emergency lighting. Decades of exposure to nebula radiation had left their mark, creating an environment that looked more alien than human-made. Life support is active, one of the Concordat's security officers reported, their biolights pulsing with concern. But these readings, something's wrong with the atmosphere mix. They're preparing the environment for their new creation. Veya realized, her sensory filaments writhing, testing different atmospheric conditions to ensure their bioweapon can survive anywhere. Control room is 2 levels up, Chen reminded them. We need tow. A screech of tortured metal interrupted her. From a side corridor emerged something that shouldn't have been possible, a creature that seemed to be made of living shadow, its form constantly shifting as it moved. Behind it came others, each more nightmarish than the last. Survivors. Kelvin's voice crackled through their comms, heavy with guilt. From the original experiments, they've adapted to live in the station's corrupted environment. The creatures showed no sign of intelligence, moving on pure instinct as they sensed the intruders. Chen's team opened fire, their weapons modified to generate focused electromagnetic pulses. The creatures recoiled from the energy bursts, their forms destabilizing temporarily. They're sensitive to electromagnetic disruption, Veya observed, her scientific curiosity evident even in crisis. The nebula's natural fields must have shaped their evolution. Use your natural abilities, Chen ordered the Concordat team members. Your bioelectric fields might disorient them more than our weapons. The alien officers concentrated, their biolights flaring with intense patterns. The creatures reacted immediately, withdrawing from the combined assault of human technology and alien biology. Rivera, status, Chen called as they pressed forward. Central lab secured, his voice crackled back. But Captain, you need to see this. They're not just combining the stolen bacteria with the station's specimens. They're using them as a delivery system. The central laboratory was a scene of ordered chaos. Complex equipment filled the massive chamber, all focused on a series of containment vessels in the center. Inside, something dark writhed with terrible purpose. Perfect organisms, a new voice declared. From behind the containment unit stepped a figure in an environmental suit of unfamiliar design, capable of surviving anywhere, adapting to any defense, and transforming environments to suit their needs. Dr. Marcus. Chen's voice was cold. I should have known. The theft was too perfectly orchestrated. Captain Chen, the rogue scientist, seemed pleased. I wondered if Earth would be smart enough to send you. Did you appreciate the trail of breadcrumbs I left? The carefully planned chase. Why? Kelvin demanded, his colors shifting with anger. Why pervert our research this way? Pervert? Marcus laughed. I'm fulfilling its purpose. Your people were too afraid to see the project through. But I understood. With these organisms, we could terraform any world, make any planet habitable for whoever can pay the right price. By destroying what's already there, Chen countered. By wiping out existing ecosystems, existing life. Progress requires sacrifice. Surely humans understand that concept. Marcus moved to activate a control panel. Now, shall we discuss terms? I have buyers waiting. He never finished the sentence. Vea's sensory filaments had detected something the others missed, a power surge building in the containment units. He's releasing them. What happened next would become legend in both human and Concordat space. Chen's voice cut through the chaos with laser precision. Rivera, Epsilon Protocol. Concordat team, full electromagnetic pulse. Vea, show us where to hit. The human and alien teams moved as one, their weeks of preparation paying off. Rivera's team detonated precisely placed charges, creating a cascade of system failures that prevented the specimens from spreading through the station. The Concordat officers generated a massive bioelectric surge, guided by Vea's sensory abilities to target the creature's vulnerabilities. And Chen, in a move that demonstrated why humans were both respected and feared, charged straight at Marcus. Her suit's enhanced strength let her reach him before he could activate the final release, tackling him away from the controls. The containment units began to crack, but emergency protocols, originally designed by the Concordat and enhanced by human engineers, slammed into place. The specimens were exposed to a lethal combination of radiation and electromagnetic pulses, their adaptive abilities overwhelmed by the coordinated assault. Hours later, aboard the Hyperion, Chen stood with Kelvin and Vea, watching as Concordat containment teams secured the station. The specimens have been neutralized, Vea reported, her filaments finally relaxed. Both the original mutations and the stolen bacteria. The station will be properly decommissioned this time. And Marcus? Kelvin asked. Facing charges from both Earth and the Concordat, Chen answered, along with his financial backers, once we finish tracing the money. You knew, didn't you? Kelvin's biolights pulsed with curiosity. From the beginning, you suspected this was more than simple theft. We had suspicions, Chen admitted, but we needed help to confirm them. That's why we came to you, even knowing it would look like treaty violation. Trust, Vea observed, given and earned. That's the real story here, isn't it? Kelvin's colors shifted to patterns of deep thought. Not just the threat we stopped, but how we stopped it. Humans and Concordat, working together. It's what humans do best, Chen said with a smile. We don't just adapt to challenges, we find others who can help us overcome them. And in the process, we all become stronger. As the Hyperion prepared to depart, escorted by an honor guard of Concordat ships, Kelvin made a final observation. You know, Captain, I think I'd finally understand why humans have such a fearsome reputation. It's not your weapons or your tactics. Oh, it's your ability to turn enemies into allies, to find cooperation where others see only conflict. That is far more impressive than any display of force. Chen's smile widened slightly. Wait until you see what we can accomplish as friends, Administrator. This is just the beginning. The massive human warship turned gracefully, its dark hull catching the nebula's light as it moved to join its Concordat escorts. Behind them, Section 31 stood as a reminder of dangers overcome and bridges built. The story of how a human warship violated Concordat space would be told for generations, not as a tale of conflict, but as the beginning of something far more important. Trust, earned through action. Respect, built on understanding. and the promise of what different species could achieve together.